So this week is Parashat Lech Lecha, the Torah portion of Lech Lecha. If you look around the world, and this pretty much is true of pretty much everyone out there, people are always thinking about their legacy. They're thinking about what's going to be left behind after I'm gone? What are people going to remember me as? What is going to be my what did I stand for? Right? You have all those stories about there was one great story about the inventor Noble that one day he opened up the newspaper. He invented TNT, I believe it was dynamite. And one day he opened up the newspaper and he read an obituary in the newspaper. The newspaper made a mistake. They thought that he had died. It was actually his brother who died. And he was reading, they wrote an obituary on him. And he opens up the paper and he starts reading about his own death and reading about what they're saying about him. And they're describing him as the something of death. Because he invented a way of killing more people. I'm sure you're familiar with the story, some of you. But that's the basic idea that he was reading about how they were looking at him as a negative thing, that he invented this way of killing more people, which is not at all his intention, but that's the way he was being remembered by. And because of this, he realized that he needed to create a new legacy, and that's when he created the Nobel Prizes. So we have this idea of thinking about a legacy, thinking of what we leave behind for the future as something that's going to be our memory, something that's going to be our legacy for the future. We see this with politicians from all sides, right? So on one end, we have President Obama. He's building right now an $830 million Obama Presidential Library. On the other side, we have President Trump, who we know loves to put his name on every building. We're not getting into political here. We're going to put both sides up there. And we're not even saying it's a bad thing. You see, if you look at any Torah institution, any Jewish organization, any building that is used for the Jewish community, you'll always see names up on the building of people who donated large sums of money in order to have their name up on the building, to have their legacy, that people will remember them by looking at this Torah institution or this a JCC or whatever it is and seeing their name up on the building. You see this by hospitals and many other institutions as well. This is talking about the rich and famous, but other people will write autobiographies. People will do all sorts of things to leave their mark on this world when they leave this world, which we're not saying it's a bad thing. As a matter of fact, we're actually going to say a story at the end that perhaps highlights the good in what we're talking about. But there's a way of truly leaving behind a Jewish legacy, and that's going to be the focus of today's class. So this week is Torah portion of Lech Lecha, which Lech Lecha is a very special Torah portion because it's where we really get to know Abraham, our forefather, the founder of the Jewish nation. It's where we really get to spend time with him and learn all about him and learn about his lifetime. But that being the case, at least for the first half of the class, the focus is not going to be so much on Abraham, and it's going to be on a side character of the story, someone else that was there along for the ride. And this person is Eliezer. Who is Eliezer? Eliezer was Abraham's non-Jewish servant, the man who stood by his side, the man who helped him, who was kind of his sidekick, as we're going to talk about in just a moment. And we're going to focus a little bit on who Eliezer was, and we'll see how this all ties in. And so we have in this week's Torah portion, God comes to Abraham, and he tells him that you are going to have good things coming. Don't worry. You're going to have huge rewards. There's going to be great rewards for you. Now imagine God comes to you and tells you about these great rewards you're going to get, how you're going to be rich and famous and you're going to have everything you want. All these great things are going to be coming your way. And Abraham's response was not, thank you, God, that's so exciting. I really appreciate it so much. Rather, Abraham turns to God and says, what do I need that for? What purpose is that to me? To give me a future, to give me money, to give me all these things. What is that going to help me? One day, who knows in how many years, but at some point, I'm going to die. I'm going to pass on. And once I pass on, what happens with that legacy? Where does that money go? What's going to happen? I have no children. I have no family to inherit me, to continue whatever I'm doing. Any gifts that you give me, any rewards that I get are just going to be passed down to my servant, to Eliezer. He's the only guy I have in this world. He's the only one who's going to inherit anything that I get. So what purpose is that to me? What do I need it for? This is what it says in this week's Torah portion. But let's take a moment and analyze what exactly Abraham said to God. Let's look at the words that he uses. Abraham said, God, of what benefit would anything be that you would give me, seeing that I am childless? And because I have no son, the steward of my household is Eliezer of Damascus. How interesting that Abraham would stick in a title here, Eliezer of Damascus. What do we care where Eliezer is from? What relevance is that to anything, that Eliezer comes from a place called Damascus? Why is that something that is relevant to this conversation, to the fact that the Torah has to record it, that today we read in the Torah and we all know that Eliezer came from Damascus? What does that matter to us? And so the sages, the commentaries, right away address this and say that obviously it's not just saying where Eliezer is from, rather it's telling you something about Eliezer. This is an important title for Eliezer because it tells us about what makes Eliezer so great. And there are different interpretations of what it means when we say Damascus, and they're all true. So let's talk about some of the interpretations that are given for the word Damascus. One interpretation is Eliezer was the one who took care of everything in Avram's house. This is not really so much the word Damascus, on the words before that. The Torah said, the steward of my household. Uven mesek beisi, the steward of my household. What does it mean when we say that Eliezer was the steward of Abraham's household? It means that he was the one, he was the chief of staff. He was the one to make sure that everything is going well. Remember, Abraham was running a Chabad house. He was running the first and biggest and greatest Chabad house in the world. He had a very busy organization that he was running. He had a tent where people were coming and going, and there was guests, and there was food, and there was places to sleep, and they were taken care of. And he was talking to them about God, and he was teaching them. There was so much going on in Abraham's household. It was a very busy place. People were constantly coming and going. Who managed the whole operation? Abraham couldn't do it on his own. He had Eliezer there. Eliezer was at his side. He was his sidekick throughout it all. Eliezer was there helping him achieve whatever all of his goals that he had to do was all done with the powers of Eliezer standing at his side and helping him get through it all. So this is who Eliezer was. The man who made it all possible for Abraham, all of the work that Abraham was doing. Another meaning of the word Damascus, where it says Damascus. Why does it say Damascus? It's not that Eliezer came from Damascus, which he might have come from there as well, according to different interpretations. But what are we stressing here? We mentioned Damascus. We're talking about another story, a story that is in this week's Torah portion, which is actually right before this part that we're mentioning here. It is a story of the very first World War. We're not talking about World War I that happened a little over 100 years ago. We're talking about the very first World War, which was way before World War I, going all the way back to the times of Abraham Avinu. That during the times of Abraham Avinu, there was a great war between 4 kings and 5 kings. 9 nations were involved in a great battle, 4 against 5. And they fought against each other until ultimately one side overpowered the other. The 4 kings overpowered the 5 kings, and they took many, many captives. At that time, one of the people who was taken captive was actually Abraham's nephew Lot, who was living in the city of Sodom, and the city of Sodom was captured in this war, and Abraham's nephew Lot was taken captive. When Abraham heard that his nephew was taken captive, he didn't sit back idly and say, "That's sad." He didn't wear a yellow pin or go to the UN. Abraham said, I'm going to go and fight for him. I'm going to go and make sure to release him, to get him out of captivity. So Abraham put together a little army. It says he put together an army of 318 people. I believe that was the number. 318 soldiers. And they went to war against these 4 mighty kings who just won a war against 5 kings. So imagine these kings were mighty. And Abraham is coming with his 318 people, and he comes and he fights a war, and the God does great miracles, and Abraham wins this war. But although we said there was 318 men, the sages actually have 2 different interpretations of this. Either there were 318 men, but the leader of these 318 was Eliezer. He was the general. He was the chief of staff of this army. Or others say, in fact, the 318 men were all Eliezer. Eliezer was as great as 318 men. It has to do with the numerical value of his name and all that. But Eliezer is the 318 himself. He is the one he was the entire army. But either way, whether he led the army or whether he was the army, Eliezer was definitely a big part of this battle, a big part of this war of freeing the captives, freeing Lot from this captivity that he was in, from this world war that was there. And it says that Eliezer, when he freed the captives, when he won the battle, he chased these 4 kings. He chased them away. How far did he chase them? He chased them all the way to Damascus. And that's why he's called Eliezer of Damascus, because Eliezer chased these kings all the way down to Damascus. So this is another thing we know about Eliezer. The Torah is telling us here, Eliezer, you want to know who he was? He was a great general. He was a great warrior. He was someone who won the battle, who was able to help Abraham win the battle, win the war, and bring back his nephew. A third interpretation, why does it say Damascus? Damascus is actually, it's a word made up of 2 different words, of dole umashke, which basically means that Eliezer's job was to feed, to give water to others. What water are we referring to? The Torah, as we spoke about in the Tanya class as well, the Torah is referred to as water. Why water? Because water comes down from a high place and it pours down to a lower place, and it brings down the Torah comes down to us down here in this world. Torah is considered like water. Abraham was the great teacher. Abraham was the philosopher. He was the one who was going out and teaching the world about this new idea of there being one God, one almighty God who's the master of the entire world. Abraham was trying to teach Torah to the world. But Abraham was limited. He's one man. How much can one man do? Phenomenal what Abraham did, but still, he's only one man. He needed help. He needed someone to help him pass the word along. He needed someone who was going to pass the word from his teacher on to the masses, and that person was Eliezer. So Eliezer was a great businessman. He was a manager. He was the one who managed the entire affairs of Abraham's operation. He was a great warrior. He was the general of Abraham's forces, the one who was able to win the battles and to bring his nephew home to safety. And number 3, he was a great student, a great Torah scholar who was able to pass on the messages from Abraham and pass on those messages and teach it to the masses, teach everybody else about the great Torah, this great idea that Abraham was trying to teach everybody. So this is who Eliezer was. And this is what Abraham is telling God. Now hold on one second. Let's take a step back. Does that really make sense? Abraham is arguing with God. He's telling God that I don't need your gifts because I don't have a son to inherit me. The only one who's going to inherit me is Eliezer, who is a great man, who is a great businessman, who is a great scholar, who is a great general. That's who's going to inherit me. Is that weakening or strengthening his argument? Does that strengthen his idea that I have no purpose for all this wealth because it's only going to go to Eliezer by saying how great Eliezer is? It seems to be weakening his argument. His argument he should have left it out. He doesn't have to say anything negative about Eliezer. But why is he talking about the greatness of Eliezer when he's just trying to mention that I have no children who's going to inherit me? It doesn't seem to be helping him in any way to come and say this. So why would Abraham at this time, during this conversation with God, specifically bring up the greatness of Eliezer? This is the question that the Lubavitch Rebbe asks on this verse in the Torah. It seems to not make any sense. And so the Rebbe explains that, in fact, the Torah is teaching here a very important lesson. The Torah is coming to teach us something that is a profound lesson for every one of us. Every one of us, as we go through life, we have goals. We have goals and we look to achieve those goals. We want to accomplish, we want to complete whatever it is we want to do. If you are a businessman, then your goals are to make a lot of money, to start a big enterprise. You want to do something great. You want to achieve great goals. If you're a warrior, you want to win big battles. If you're a teacher, you want to be able to teach your ideas of big philosophies to those around you. Whatever it is that you are in life, you want to go out and achieve greatness, achieve great things with whatever it is that you have to offer. Whatever it is everybody has. And there is a certain point in life where somebody might say, I did it. I've reached my goal. I have achieved great things. I've accomplished great moments in what I'm trying to do. I've created a huge business network. I'm worth millions of dollars. Fantastic. I did great. But the Torah is telling us something here. You may think that you have done so much. You may think you've accomplished so much. You've gone so far. You have not achieved your goals. No matter what it is that you've done, you have not achieved your goals just by doing it alone. The only way you can truly achieve your goals, you can truly accomplish great things, is by then having someone to pass it on to. You need to have children. You need to have a next generation who's going to take what you've built and run with it. Otherwise, there's no future. Whatever you've done, whatever you've accomplished, is not going to go forward. It's not going to achieve anything. It's all going to fizzle out eventually. It's not going to keep going unless you have something that you're building towards, someone that's going to keep it going, someone that's going to make it happen all the way till the end. And so therefore, what the Torah is telling here, what it's saying here is Eliezer was a great man. Eliezer was a wonderful businessman. He was a mighty warrior. He was a great Torah scholar. He's fantastic. But he's still Eliezer. He's not my child. He's not my offspring. He's not my future. This is not where it's going to continue forever. As we can see, in reality, Eliezer was, as we said, such a great man. But have you ever heard anything about Eliezer's children? Eliezer had children. We know that he had children. Yet we don't know anything about them. I have yet to see any reference anywhere to Eliezer's children about any great things that they've accomplished, how they were great in any way, how they were part of the Jewish nation in any way. They weren't. They fizzled out because they weren't actually family. They weren't part of it. So Abraham is telling God, I have a mission in this world. I have something that I need to accomplish. I need to create a new nation. I need to create a future. I can't do that without children. Giving me Eliezer is fantastic. He's great. He's a great sidekick. But he's not what I need. I need a child. I need someone who's going to carry this forward, who's going to carry forward my message, my mission, and carry it on to the next generation. This is what I need. And this is what our mission is all about, the only way we can truly accomplish our mission. There's a story of, let's do this first. There's a story happened back in 1959. A man by the name of Rabbi Zalman Garari. Rabbi Zalman Garari was a businessman in New York, and he had a cousin whose name was Rabbi Shmaryo Garari. Shmaryo Garari was a brother-in-law to the Lubavitcher Rebbe. The Rebbe and Rabbi Garari married two sisters, which were the daughters of the previous Rebbe. They were brothers-in-law. Rabbi Garari's job was to manage the Chabad yeshiva network. He was in charge of taking care of all the students, the schools, making sure they were funded, that they were being run properly. So his job was to manage this school network. And his brother-in-law, his cousin, Zalman Garari, was a businessman. Zalman Garari, as we mentioned, he was a businessman. He made a lot of money. He did big business things. One day, his cousin, who's known as the Rashag, came to him and said, Zalman, the yeshiva right now is in a really bad position. We need to collect some money. We need a lot of money to come into the yeshiva. I know that you go on these trips and you make a lot of money. You have a lot of big connections. I would like to travel with you on your next business trip. I want to come along with you and meet the people that you do business with and speak to them about donating money for the yeshiva. I want to make this a fundraising trip to go along with you. Now, Zalman was not that excited about the idea. He didn't really want to turn his business into a fundraising trip, but his cousin drove him crazy and he kept asking him again and again and again. So finally he says, okay, I'll make you a deal. I have plans to go soon to Brazil. I'm going on a big trip to Brazil. We're going to meet a lot of very wealthy people that I do business with. I will take you along and introduce you to these people on one condition. What's the condition? When we get back, I need you to go to your brother-in-law, to the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and arrange for me a private audience with the Lubavitcher Rebbe. And I will ask the Rebbe for a blessing, and you have to guarantee that the Rebbe is going to give me whatever I ask for. I'm going to ask for whatever I want, and the Rebbe has to give me a blessing for whatever it is. What kind of request is that? That's the deal. So Rabbi Garari went back. He's known as the Rashag. He went back to the Rebbe, to his brother-in-law, and says, "This is what my cousin wants. He said he'll take me on this business trip, but you need to agree to give him whatever he asks for." The Rebbe says, "Okay, it's a deal." So he went along on the trip, and he was tremendously successful. Everywhere he went, every person that he met gave him a lot of money, and he came back and it saved the yeshiva. It's a great trip, great fundraising trip. Everything went very well. After he gets back, so his cousin comes to him and says, "All right, we had a deal. Deal's a deal, right? I did my part. I made sure you got to collect all this money from all these wealthy people, from all my business associates. Now it's your turn to do your part of the deal, to arrange a meeting with the Rebbe, where I will then ask for whatever I want, and the Rebbe is going to give me whatever I ask for." So, sure enough, the Rashag arranges a meeting with the Rebbe. Zalman Garari comes into the Rebbe's office. The Rebbe smiles and says, "What can I do for you? What is it that you want?" So he says as follows. He says, I invested a large sum of money in importing a lot of, I don't know what it was he was dealing with. It had a lot of stuff, cargo sitting on a ship that was being imported. It was being brought into the country. It's a huge ship with a lot of cargo on there. And the ship had some kind of accident at sea. The ship sunk, and I lost a huge amount of money. It was a tremendous loss for me, a big financial loss. And so I want the Rebbe to promise me that I'm going to recover and I'm going to get back all the money that I lost in this transaction. The Rebbe then got very serious. The Rebbe looked at him very serious, and the Rebbe said, if one is given an opportunity, when someone is given an opportunity to ask for anything he wants, he has to be smart enough to know what to ask for. He was very taken aback. And the Rebbe said, if you're given an opportunity to ask for anything you want, you should ask for success in your family, that your children should do well, that they should grow up to be God-fearing people, that you should have a good legacy amongst your children. He was very taken aback, and he says, "Yes, Rebbe, that's what I want." The Rebbe smiled and says, "That's what you'll get. You'll get your wish." So this is what it's all about. Our focus is on creating a future for our families, to creating something that we can continue to give to our families in the future. Now, I do want to mention, this teaching that we're mentioning is coming from the Lubavitcher Rebbe. The Lubavitcher Rebbe, as many of you may know, never had any children. He never had a child. For whatever reason, God never blessed him with a child. And here he is, the Rebbe is talking about the importance of children, of having children to pass it on to. So there's a story told of somebody who once came, a visitor from out of town, came to visit the Rebbe's wife. Her name was Rebbe Simchaya Mushka. He came to visit the Rebbe's wife in her home. It was a woman and a child. They came to visit the Rebbe's wife. And they were there. While they were there in the house, they were talking. The child was looking around the house, got a little bored. And so she turned to this child turned to the Rebbetzin, to the Rebbe's wife, and said, excuse me, where are your children? I'm bored. I want someone to play with. Where's your children? So the Rebbetzin smiled. Of course, she had no children. She smiled and she told the child, my children are all of the Hasidim that you see. All the people here in the community, everyone who is connected to the Rebbe, those are all our children. And this wasn't just a nice thought. This was the way the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin looked at it. They saw all of us that study and learn from the Rebbe, that get our encouragement, that get our chayut, that get our life force from the Rebbe. We are all the Rebbe's children. A child doesn't have to mean excuse me. A child does not have to mean a biological child. Ask any adoptive parent if they feel that they're a parent or an adoptive parent. A true adoptive parent will say, "What do you mean? I'm the father. I'm the parent. I'm not an adoptive parent. I am the parent of this child. To me, they are my children." And so, being a parent, having a child, does not necessarily mean a biological child. It can mean any way where you are there to support and help this person grow in their physical or in their spiritual path through life. There's a story told of the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov, as we know, he was a great miracle worker. And there was a certain, a simple man, a good man, by the name of Meir of Moshe Shlomo. Moshe Shlomo was a follower of the Baal Shem Tov, and he would come all the time, and he would meet with the Baal Shem Tov. And he had one problem in life, this Moshe Shlomo. Didn't have any children, and it really bothered him. And he would often come to the Rebbe and ask the Rebbe for a blessing for children. Come to the Baal Shem Tov. And the Baal Shem Tov would give him all kinds of wonderful blessings, that he should have financial success, and everything should go well for him. But he never responded to his main request, his request to have children. And the years were passing, and Moshe Shlomo kept coming and asking the Baal Shem Tov for a blessing for children, and he wasn't receiving this blessing. It wasn't coming. Everything else was getting great, but not the children. And the Rebbe never responded. One day, he comes to the Baal Shem Tov, and he's crying, and he says, I can't anymore. I can't do this. I don't have any children. I have no future. I have no one to leave anything behind to. I need to have children. So the Baal Shem Tov tells him, you know what? Tomorrow I'm going on a trip. Why don't you come along for the trip? Come along for the ride. We're going to go somewhere. Surprised by the offer, but nobody says no to the Baal Shem Tov. Says, of course, I'd love to join you on the trip. And so the next morning they set out. They get on the wagon together with a group of students, and they start traveling. As the Baal Shem Tov's way, he didn't tell anybody where he was going, including the wagon driver. Nobody knew where to go. It would go, and the horses knew where to go, and they would travel wherever the Baal Shem Tov intended to go. And so it was. They start traveling 1 day, 2 days, finally arrive in a small town, and they get out, and they find a place to stay, and then a hotel or whatever. And then the Baal Shem Tov turns to Moshe Shlomo and says, let's go for a walk. Let's look around town. Let's see what's going on in this little village. They start walking around. They're walking down the street, and they see a group of children that are playing. So the Baal Shem Tov walks over to one of the boys and says, excuse me, what's your name? The boy says, my name is Baruch Moshe. Baruch Moshe, beautiful name. Then he turns to his friend and he says, and what's your name? He says, my name is Baruch Moshe. And he turns to the third boy and says, what's your name? My name is Moshe David. And then he walks a little further, meets another child. What's your name? My name is Moshe Yaakov. And what's your name? My name is Baruch Chaim. And he realizes everybody in the town, slowly going through the town, all the boys in town are either named Baruch Moshe, or they have the name Baruch or Moshe. Everyone has at least part of the name of Baruch Moshe in their name, all the children in town. And then he starts talking to the girls and he says, what's your name? My name is Bracha Leah. And what's your name? Bracha Leah. And what's your name? Bracha Leah. And again, either their name was Bracha or Leah or Bracha Leah. Every child in town, they all have these two names of Baruch Moshe or Bracha Leah. What's going on in this town? What's this idea that everybody has the same name? It's time for the prayers, so they go to the shul. They go into the shul for prayers, and afterwards they approach one of the people in the town, and the Baal Shem Tov says, "Tell me, why is everybody in town? All the kids have the same name. Why is everybody named Baruch Moshe or Bracha Leah in the whole town?" So all the students are ready to hear about some great tzaddik who lived here, whose name was Baruch Moshe, and they all want to hear what's this great idea. And he says, no, there was a simple man here by the name of Baruch Moshe. He was a simple man. He lived about 100 years ago in our town, and he was a butcher, and he did well. He had a good business going, but he had no children, and it really bothered him. He never had any children. For many years, he kept praying for children. He never had any children. One day, his father passed away. When his father passed away, he wanted to say Kaddish for his father, to learn Mishnayot, to learn things for his father. And he realized, what happens when I die? What happens when my end is here, and I have no children, no one to pray for me? There's no one to remember me when I am gone. And so it just built up more, and he was getting more and more depressed about it, that there was no legacy, there was no children leaving. He's not leaving any children behind. One day he's sitting in the shul, and he hears the rabbi is giving a class. And the rabbi tells the class, you should know that another way of having a child, besides for being someone who's naturally has children, is you can teach another child Torah. By becoming a teacher and teaching Torah to another child, that child becomes yours. And it becomes as if you are the father of that child that you taught Torah to. He's listening, and he says, still doesn't work. I don't know any Torah. I'm a simple butcher. What do I know? How am I going to teach Torah to other kids? Another lost opportunity. So afterwards, he goes to the rabbi, and he starts crying to the rabbi, and he says, Rabbi, what do I do? I don't have any children. I can't teach Torah to other children because I don't know anything. What do I do? The rabbi told him there is another way. There is another way that you can have children, and that is if you support Jewish education. If you support children going to school, if you support the schools and provide Jewish education for others, then once again, those children, it's as if you taught them Torah, and if you taught them Torah, you are their father, and this is another way of getting children. And so it was from that day on. Baruch Moshe and his wife, Bracha Leah, they've devoted all their money, all their funds, and all their whole life to providing education for the children of that area, of all the towns around. And they provided schools, and they provided everything they needed for a good Jewish education. And it was all done completely from his own pocket. And when he passed away, the community honored him. They said, all of our children, we all name our children after this beautiful couple, this couple who devoted their entire lives for our education. And so it was. They hear many years later, all the children in town are all named after this couple because they are like their parents. They are the ones who gave them their Jewish education. So, the point of this whole thing is, there are many different ways of having children, whether it's physical children, whether it's spiritual children, whether it's children that we have provided for them, given them the opportunity of growth. We all have opportunities in life, and we have to find what opportunities are there for us. We have to see what we can do to further this, to bring our children into this world in whatever way we can. But the only way we can truly have a legacy, we can truly have a future, we can create something that is lasting, something that will be there for the future, is only through having children, having something that is ours, that we can, a future for the next generation that is our children, that we can build on. And this is the message that the Torah is telling us. And the Torah is telling us that Eliezer was great, but Eliezer was not Avram's child. Avram didn't really create him as a future for the nation, and that was never going to work with Eliezer. If we think about Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, what do we call them? The patriarchs, the Avot, the forefathers. We don't say Avraham HaTzadik. We don't say Avraham Rabbeinu, our teacher, the righteous. We call him Avraham Avinu, Avraham our father. And the same thing with Yitzchak and Yaakov. They were great people. There's so many wonderful things that we can say about Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. But what do we call them? We call them Avinu. We call them the patriarchs. That is how we refer to them, because that is their outstanding quality. That is what they're all about. They were about creating a nation, about having children that is their future, that is going to carry on the mission. That is what made them who they were. That is what they're all about. It's all about creating a future, about creating a next generation to carry on the torch, to keep it going. And that is what it's all about. We say one of the most important mitzvot that we have. We do this every day, every morning, and every night. And if you don't, you definitely should. It's a quick and easy mitzvah. It's a very important one. Every evening and every morning and every evening, we say the Kriyat Shema. We say Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God. The Lord is one. And then, as we continue, what do we talk about? We talk about the importance of education. Vishinantam levanach, you should teach it to your children. Right away, as we talk about the Kriyat Shema, we talk about the oneness, the greatness of God, we tie it right into Jewish education, because that is what it's all about. That was the message that the Torah is telling us here, that it's all about a future. It's all about creating something that is going to keep the legacy going. And this is how you create a true legacy. This is how we create a future. This is how we leave something behind. That's not a big, beautiful building, perhaps. Perhaps it's not a $830 million presidential library. Perhaps it's not hotels with your name across it. Perhaps it's not an airplane with your name on it. It's not all these. It's not even a JCC with your name on it. Right? Not all of us can name the shul after our names. You can. We'd love to buy a building, but we all can do something to create a legacy. We all can do something to provide a future, a way to keep our legacy going. And that is the message of this week's Torah portion.